This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
Chapter 10, again with AmyLee, because we're recording 2 episodes in one day.
May not sound like it to you folks out there, but this is actually just the same day, a little bit later, actually quite a bit later, because we procrastinated a long time before starting.
But we're here.
But here we are, back with Perrin, ready to make some changes in Chapter 10.
With a wolf symbol.
Have you ever read the Dresden Files?
Nope.
Yes.
The book changes. Such a big difference in that series. I don't know if you remember, but he was going down one very formulaic path, and then he wrote a book called Changes, and then he went down a completely different path.
Yes.
For the remainder of that series.
Yeah.
So I don't know why the chapter header brought that book to mind.
That hadn't even occurred to me. But I feel like there's
Don't know
also a chapter in New Spring called Changes.
Probably.
He does like to reuse his chapter names.
Yes, there is. Because when I went to the Phantom Wiki page to look stuff up for this chapter, it said, oh, if you're looking for the chapter with the same title in New Spring, click this link instead.
And this is the chapter that you originally wanted to do. This is actually the one, which is why you're sticking it out late into the evening for you. Because this is actually what you came here to talk about.
Yes.
This is Chapter 10, Changes, and our symbol is the wolf. When Perrin left the Wise One's tent, he considered removing his coat to see whether his hide was still attached and whole. Not a tethered goat, maybe, but a stag with 6 she-wolves on his heels, and he was unsure what fast feet had gained him. For certain, none of the Wise Ones had changed her mind, and their promises not to take any action on their own had been vague at best. About the Eyes to Die, there had been no promises, even foggy ones. He looked for either of the sisters, and found Masuri. A narrow rope had been tied between 2 trees, and a fringed red and green rug draped over it. The slender brown was flailing away with a bent wood beater, raising thin clouds of dust, motes that floated glittering in the mid-morning air. Her warder, a compact man with dark receding hair, sat on a fallen tree trunk nearby, watching her glumly. Rovere Kirkland normally had a ready grin, but it was buried deep today. Masuri caught sight of Perrin, and with barely a pause in her rug beating shot him a look of such frozen malevolence that he sighed. And she was the one who thought as he did, as close as he was likely to find, anyway. A red-tailed hawk passed overhead, riding currents of hot air from hill to hill without flapping its outstretched wings. It would be very nice to soar away from all this. The iron in front of him, not dreams of silver.
So the red-tailed hawk, I looked it up, and it symbolizes they're divine messengers, and they bring heavenly guidance. And in just a second, from behind the hill, who comes over but his parents' favorite mentor, Daddy.
Nice.
Daddy Elyas.
Elyas Machera. Yeah.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we talked about how in the previous chapter there was the 2 doves and the hawk, and that was a symbol for something. We couldn't figure out exactly what, but I like the idea that he's using birds as omens for these chapters.
Which really works with Perrin.
At first I was like, is the hawk symbolizing something with Barrelane? But then I looked it up and was like, oh no, this is definitely Elyas then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Nice. Good catch.
And I like the saying, the iron in front of him, not dreams of silver. That if you're a blacksmith, work on iron. Don't dream of being a silversmith. But that applies to if you're a leader, lead. Don't dream of being a blacksmith.
Deal with what is. Don't make yourself miserable with what isn't. Yeah.
We get an introduction to Ghaul again. Right, Ghaul is a friend, and the only man among the Aiel who did not wear white. Elyas shows up. Good to see you again, boy. You gave away that axe finally. I don't think you'd ever stop hating it. Now, he still uses the axe, right? He's just carrying the hammer. Exclusively?
I didn't realize he was carrying either of them right now. But, yeah, I definitely could have missed that. But I'm very sure that he still has the axe somewhere.
He definitely does, right? Until he cuts off the Shido hand, right? In a couple books, he's still using the axe. He still has it, but I feel like he's carrying the hammer. Because remember, there was that bubble of evil, and his hammer was the only weapon that didn't attack him. But he doesn't mention anything about his axe.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like, and that this is just speculation, but I feel like that he would have had continued to have the axe until he made Mjolnir. I forgot what the what the Wheel of Time.
Ma'alanir.
Oh yeah,
Ma'alanir.
thanks. Yeah, this is the Danish name for Thor's hammer, Mjolnir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wait, yeah.
But yeah, I feel like he has the axe until he makes that.
Yeah, he's at this point he has the axe, he just doesn't carry it unless he knows he's going into battle. He leaves it behind whenever possible. But he doesn't have a hammer to carry yet either.
Okay.
I mean, he's got like the war hammer, but he doesn't have the relationship with it that he ends up having with Ma'alanir.
Right, 'cause, I mean, he's carrying the hammer into battle, so he still has his hammer.
Yes.
Right, the one he got from the blacksmith in, gosh, was that Kyrian?
I think, no, it's a war hammer. The one he got from the blacksmith is an actual craft hammer, and he breaks it on making Ma'alanir.
Yes, but now, currently, in this chapter, that's the hammer he has.
Oh, he doesn't have a war hammer?
No.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, he uses just a normal blacksmith's hammer in battle. Like, that's...
What a fucking badass.
Right,
I
right?
never quite put that together, that it was literally a crafting implement. That he didn't even beat it into a sword. He's just like, meh.
That's the whole point of it. It needs to not be a weapon.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the Aiel thing about we don't like swords because that's just a weapon. Yeah.
I just never put that together the way I should have. Durr.
Because it's literally the hammer he carries is the one. Remember, he spends that day foraging, and Faile gets thirsty and looks at his back. Like, that blacksmith gives him that
It's
hammer.
in tier, right?
Yeah, it's in tier.
Yeah, that's in tier. That's right.
How did I not realize that's the hammer?
That's the hammer that he carries all the
And
way.
he also uses it to make Ma'alanir.
Mm-hmm.
How I am such a fucking...
I didn't realize that where the hammer came from either.
And then he has the axe until he cuts off the Shido hand, and then he just buries it in a tree and walks away from it.
Yeah.
He's like, leave it.
Yeah.
Let it rust in the tree or whatever. I forget exactly what.
Yeah, let some other fool find it, and it's...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's not carrying it now, which is what Elyas mentions. Is like, oh, did you get rid of the axe? Do you hate it? And he's like, I still do, so I've still got it. I think is basically what he said.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, I didn't think you'd ever stop hating that. And Perrin's like, you are correct. This is true.
And then Ghaul gives him a lot of honor, basically saying he snuck up on me. And the maidens are like aware that Ghaul is no dummy, and like they're like, oh, Elyas is a bad ass. And they basically like, well done.
Yeah.
I feel like they slow clap.
I love this interaction so much for that. Where Ghaul's just like, hey, ladies, by the way, total badass just walked into camp. And they're like, okay, all right.
Well, okay.
It's so much fun.
But it also tells you how much of a badass Ghaul is that they immediately accept how badass Elyas is if he can sneak
exactly.
up on Ghaul.
And I like how Ghaul is not like in like that competitive space with them. He's like, you should know this is a badass. Like straight up meets our skills badass. You should be aware of that as a security hazard. And the maidens are like, noted. We're not going to give you shit about this. We're just going to respect your opinion. Because we do respect you as a warrior. That's why we're like giving you such a hard time most of the time. Like, it's how I are.
So, not really sure how Elyas got here. I mean, Ghealdan's not that far from where he was in the Caroline Grass. You just have to cut through the middle of nowhere Andor.
Yeah, which is where he hangs out, is the middle of nowhere in general.
You know, it is a little bit of like, oh, he just happened to be in the area? Okay, Taviran. But at the same time, he does wander. It is entirely possible he would eventually wander. Now, my only question is, like, Perrin hasn't been in Ghealdan that long, right? Like,
in Crown of Swords, when does he break away from Rand? Like, when do they have the fight? During those...
It's after Dumai's Wells.
10 days.
It's like, and we know Crown... Yeah, it's a couple of days into it, but we're maybe 10 plus... We said 10 plus 7, so, you know, we're maybe 14 days past...
But I also, like, Elyas tells us that the wolves smell a change. And that's, like, what gets him started on this journey or whatever. And he's like, oh, okay, there's a change coming. I want to be part of the last hunt. And so I think that's when he starts, like, oh, okay, how can I, like, help out the best way? Oh, wait, there was this little wolf boy. What happened to him? Where is he today?
Yeah. I think it's Taviran. Plus, the wolves can transmit information across a really long distance. So, like, I happened to be in Ghealdan and some friends told me you were around. Could have been, like, across the country a week ago.
Yeah.
And he's been traveling this whole way to check on how Perrin's doing because he cares that much.
Because Perrin traveled to the area, right? So there's no way Elyas could have been, like, waiting for him.
Yeah,
or,
no.
You know,
But Ghealdan's small enough that, like, in Ghealdan and able to get over it, he can run like a wolf, right? He can travel really fast. I bet he can cross the country in a few days if he really sets his mind to it.
I wonder if the wolves smell that a change is coming. Is this related to like Nynaeve's weather sense that she's like, oh, there's a storm coming, but the storm is not actual weather. It's the last battle,
think so.
and this change that the wolves smell. Like, is it
the change to me goes back to Veins of Gold, the hunt, the last hunt, right? So as they call it, because when Rand has his epiphany and goes basically through Veins of Gold, there's a point there where the wolves say everything will change, nothing, things aren't going to end, but now there's a change. And I feel like that is specifically the Great Hunt begins. That's the change he's talking about, is the change of basically the last battle. I think is I don't think it's I think that this isn't the weather sense coming up. I think this is actually the last battle.
That's what I'm saying. Like, Nynaeve's weather sense is also not the last, or it's also not like weather. It's the last battle, True.
But up to this point, she has been saying the storm is coming, and that's been referencing the Shan-Chan coming to Ebu Dar, right? Because she was in Ebu Dar, and she's like, a storm is coming, and then the storm broke, and that was the Shan-Chan. I think there is a point where that switches over to the last battle.
Yeah. But okay, so Nynaeve is able to, like, whatever, sense that a big battle is coming and like relevant to her and her kind. So the wolves sensing this change and like that's just the last hunt for them. That's the next big relevant thing.
Probably. That's what I would think. Because what else would matter to the wolves?
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Nothing else matters to them. Like this.
But does that then mean that the wolves being able to smell this change, is that a talent? Or do all wolves have this?
I expect it's related to dreaming, right? Because they're in the world of dreams, and so they have a little bit of that sort of like, and they don't relate to the world. They don't see prophecies. They don't hear prophecies. They smell prophecies. Right. So I kind of imagine like, basically this is essentially the dreamer wolves doing the same thing as the dreamer wise ones, except through smell instead of through visions.
Yeah, I agree. Their relationship to the world of dreams probably makes a lot more of them have a vague sense of how things are. Yeah.
All things change, Ghaul said dismissively. Until we wake, the dream drifts on the wind. I like the idea. I think the relating the real world to the dream, again, ties into Rand and his powers and the final battle. And also I love the meta of that. Like, this is all just Robert Jordan's dream to begin with.
I like that.
Just had a thought that the Aiel dreaming that they're this perfect society, and now they have been woken up with the fact that, oh no, actually, you guys, here's your past. You came from Zingers, you betrayed the Aes Sedai. Could that also be some kind of like, oh, we gotta wake up from this dream that we've been living in?
I like that.
And then what follows is, I think, a great little interaction between Ghaul and the maidens.
I love it so much.
It's one of my favorites, yeah. I was surprised to see you come back today, the white-haired woman replied. This is Sulin. They went out to set snares for rabbits. Laughter rippled through the maidens, and fingers flicked rapidly in hand talk. Sighing, Ghaul rolled his eyes ostentatiously. In that case, I think I must go cut them loose. Almost as many maidens laughed at that, including Sulin. So, yeah, that's just a great
It even starts
reference
with him saying, like, well, I guess I'd better go make sure they haven't shot themselves while they're out hunting. Like, he's like, hey, where are they? I'm pretty sure they're in trouble and I should go save them. And it goes back and forth like a volleyball or like a tennis volley. It's so cute. And it's like, he's like, no, I'm really into them. And they're like, yeah, we approve. Like, they approve. They're on his side now. Now they're just waiting to see what their Bane and Chiad are going to put him through. But now they approve. They're not standing in the way. They're like, yeah, right. You've earned it.
And I think at this point he's pretty much convinced Chiad, but Bane is not really going for it. he's really still gotta. We've been away from Perrin for so long. We haven't really seen him. We had him on his honeymoon for a book, and then he sort of came back a little bit for Dumai's Wells, but we didn't see him a lot in that book either. And in the last book, and then he got sent off to Ghealdan with the group. And so now this is really where we're seeing Perrin and Ghaul again, and that relationship pick up again. I feel like it stalled out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we didn't hear about it for a while. Like it was this whole thing where Ghaul like chased Perrin to the Two Rivers just so he could like be with Bane and Giad.
Yeah.
But
I assume that's why he's still with Perrin.
yeah, basically. And then, but yeah, we didn't really see that relationship advance during that period of time, as far as I can tell. Like, it was a gap, but, that big honeymoon where Perrin was, like, hanging out with Faile, Bane and Giad and Ghaul didn't do anything. And then they get kidnapped. Yeah.
More of that unrequited, vaguely creepy pursuit of love relationship style.
Yeah, and he does then, they become Guy Shine, and then he goes and rescues them, so they become his Guy Shine, which is a whole weird, like, they're his servants, then he wants to marry them, but that's actually pretty common, apparently, in Aiel society, as a way to get to know your significant others.
And then they end up totally at the
family.
upper hand in that whole relationship, like, instantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
It stays funny and adorable, but it's also, like, you look at the nuts and bolts of it, and it's just like, this leaves something to be desired. But it's really cute if you just read it the way it's written.
There's a certain amount of romantic tension that happens in romantic fantasies, that the will they, won't they, the pursuit, all that kind of stuff, that in real life, all that's kind of creepy, but it creates the drama that you need to be interesting in a relationship. Or else, because, like, most fictional relationships, if they were written the way we want them to be, would be like, hey, so I like you. Yeah, no. Okay, bye. And that would be the end of it. There wouldn't be any tension there, true. Right? Like, that would be like, communicate, consent, and then move on. Like, that's how you establish a real relationship. And if our characters did that, there'd be nothing for us to agonize over and ship and be like, will they, won't they? Like, that's the entertainment for us. So there's a certain amount of, abusiveness isn't the right term, but
stalking
that tends to happen in these books for dramatic and entertaining reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it helps if we know that they're all into each other already, and it's just like, well, we can't because I'll leave death in my wake, or whatever, like some stupid reason like that, Then at least it's just like interpersonal drama and not like, hey, I know you don't like me, but I'm going to stalk you until you do, okay? How's that sound?
Great.
But there's different, like, with Ghaul, we know that she likes him. She just doesn't want to, like, divorce the spear for him.
Right.
But the stalking is sort of, like, she appreciates it to some degree, like, but whereas Barely...
Well, and again, there's two different people, right? So Bane appreciates it. Or Giad appreciates it, Bane does not.
But that's a whole different aspect of that relationship. But just like, yes, she appreciates it to some degree. Whereas Berylaine's stalking Perrin, and Perrin has, in my eyes, said clearly, no, thank you, please stop. And probably actually said those words or some variation of that.
Oh, yeah.
And that, to me, is just, Berylline, stop. Like, he clearly said, no, respect that. He has given you nothing to assume that that's okay or wanted or appreciated or anything.
And with her, the problem is she's playing Game of Houses, not playing romance. That she's in it for the power and the connections, and thinks Faile is doing the same thing and completely misses the romance aspect of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, also, like, with Ghaul and Bane and Giad, it's like, oh, we'll sleep with you, but we won't marry you. So you're saying there's a chance, right? Like, that's actually a thing, as opposed to, like, get out of my face, which is...
exactly.
Yeah, it's what you're saying. It's just very different. Very different.
Yeah.
And that backs into the weird sexism of why the hell can he get married and continue to be a warrior and they can't. You two did the exact same eye roll head back. That was perfect. That was just identical. Well, he was like, yeah, that was
half
great.
a world apart, same eye roll.
Yeah, same eye roll. That was amazing. So yeah, no, it's a problem, you know, and he kind of solves it by making the guy shine so that it gets taken away from them anyway, and yeah.
At least he didn't engineer the guy shine situation in the slightest.
No, that was pure accident, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, no.
Yeah, he's like, fuck, this is not ending well. And they're like, yes, at long last.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyhow.
There's a lot of weirdness.
But what happens while your guy shine stays while your guy shine. Right. So they can do whatever, you know, whatever kind of relationship they want to try out, have with him. And he can't come back when that year and a day is over and say, but you know, we did all these things. We were like a happy polyamorous throuple, whatever, you know. No. That was while we were guys shine. Now we're back to business. We're wedded to the spear. Bye, boy.
Yeah, we don't know how that goes.
Remember, what happens in Malden stays in Malden.
That too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, so that's totally, we don't even know how that relationship goes. We just know that it gets closer over the rest of the series. But we don't know how long-term that is because, yeah, they have most of their year left to serve after the last battle.
Yeah. Wait, they don't even fight the last battle?
No.
No, the guy
The
shine.
guys shine do
like,
things like with like they help with the medical side.
Oh, okay.
Like,
because I was like, that's a
There's
complete
flaws,
waste
yeah.
of really good warriors.
it is, but they then operate
Gito.
in the hospital. So it's like, I mean, at least they're
okay.
doing something. It's like the Tinkers like won't fight, but they go out and like collect. They go out and mark the dead versus people who could still be saved. Like that's what they can do. So
Yeah. Okay.
And like the apprentices bonding with the yellows for healing in Man, right? Like there's a lot of support that happens that's not direct fighting.
And that's also very valuable. Like, no question. But I'm just saying, like, Tinkers are not trained fighters. Novices are not trained channelers. But Guy Shine are trained warriors. Most of
some
them.
of them.
Like,
yeah.
But if you think about it, though, it's also a way. I sort of think about it like a virus, right? Like if you commit all your warriors to every fight, they can be wiped out. But if some of them are servants, they can rise back up and have another wave of infection come back. It's like a little reservoir of disease, right? Like That's
okay.
I mean,
that's dark.
I'm thinking about like, okay,
putting your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is dark, but it works.
And the Guy Shine are kind of like that, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if the hospital gets attacked, you know the Guy Shine are not going down without defending.
Actually, they might, because they're Guy Shine, and Gito is...
Yeah.
But it's the last battle. They're already struggling with that decision. Do any Guy Shine decide that their oaths are off for the last battle?
A lot of them shake off the bleakness right before the last battle. We had a line that a bunch of the Guy Shine have decided, like, what, last battle? Yeah, I'm done with this bleakness stuff.
But not the normal Guy Shine, just the bleakness.
But not, just the bleakness. Well, because a lot of them do become Guy Shine because of
right.
They have the bleakness and stuff like that. So, and I don't know. I think it's entirely possible that some of the other Guy Shine also would.
I feel like some of them would have.
Would have just been like, it's the last battle. Like, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what Gito is about, keeping the Aiel alive so we can fight.
Right. In the last battle. Yeah. So I would also, here's another thing, a lot of the Siswayamon, they are basically Guy Shine who fight.
Right.
That's what I think of them.
Yeah.
They have lost their honor, and so in order to get their honor back, they have become Spears of the Dragon. They are Guy Shine to the dragon, but they're Spear Guy Shine. They're fighting servants. So that's what I think of Siswayamon as, is sort of the people who... So I'm wondering if maybe a Guy Shine tied on that banner.
Yeah.
That would be a way.
The dragon breaks all bonds. Even Gito, possibly. Because some of the Guy Shine do put on the Siswayamon symbol.
That's
we
right.
see
Some
that.
of them are
so I could definitely see those Guy Shine also breaking.
Be like, I am a Spear of the Dragon.
That's what it is. Dragon needs me to fight.
It's the last battle. That's what that's as a Guy Shine. That's what my obligation is.
I would also assume that if they did that, then they could just say, oh, okay, well, I am back to being Guy Shine afterwards, and I will be Ghealdan even longer to, balance out my
Yeah, the
my
take what you
deeds.
want and pay for it kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'll pay for it.
yes.
If I
Right,
live,
right.
if I survive, which I
Yeah.
probably won't because it's the last
Yeah.
battle.
Right.
And I'll definitely redeem
Right.
my honor if I die in the last battle. So,
Yeah.
life is a dream.
It's like when Sulin is like,
Yeah.
yells at the Ghealdan, run, and treats them like maidens. They go and they run, right? And she pays for that by being a servant forever, which is. But that whole thing is her being like, hey, even in an emergency, the Ghealdan can be treated like maidens.
Yeah, and we never see the Ghealdan getting punished for that. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't.
No.
I don't think she did. I think Sulin took that on.
Exactly. That was Sulin's.
Only Sulin, yeah.
Only Sulin took on the toe
Yeah.
from that. The Ghealdan did not.
Yeah, in fact, I think the Ghealdan would have gained more G because
Exactly.
Sulin dishonored her by reminding her, like, I know you were a maiden.
Mm-hmm.
Here, let me rub it in.
Right, yeah, totally.
It might actually shorten their time as
Yeah.
Ghealdan.
Right, it's such, yeah, totally. And I could definitely see a few wise ones being like, yes, I will pay for your honor. Like, get out there. Or a clan chief being like, we're doing this. I'm taking in a contingent of Ghealdan. Fucking pick up a spear.
All right, I have an idea. Let's take all the guilt and all the toe and put it on one person, and then we can kill that person, and then no one will have toe left. I call the idea Christianity.
Yeah, because, like, if the maidens can carry the dragon's honor, someone else can carry all of the guilt and shame. Yeah, okay, sure.
And just to make sure that they die, we put them on a cross and crucify them.
Good plan. Yeah. Solid.
Yeah, that's, you could make a religion out of this.
You really could. You really could.
Should we return
But
to the
I mean,
chapter at some point?
I don't know. It's really harsh to kill somebody like that. Maybe you can just have them come back after 3 days, so that way, like, you don't feel guilty about killing them.
That seems reasonable. I think we can put that into the fine
reasonable.
print.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, enough hashing on Christianity. We
Chapter.
Back to the book.
We should get through it.
So the next thing I have is they talk about the water bond, and Elyas being like, oh shit, an Aes Sedai, but at least it's not my Aes Sedai. I wouldn't want to run into her. And Perrin's like, well, you could tell, right? And Elyas has to go like, no, like, they are people, and we like mask our bond because people have sex. And Perrin's like, oh my god, a woman can have sex for fun, not reproduction? What?
And she doesn't want you listening in on it? What?
It's so funny.
Yeah. And there are some inherent contradictions in here. Like, why, if she can fuzz it, but he can't, why hasn't she tracked him down?
They can both fuzz it.
I don't think they can.
I don't think so. Just the Aes Sedai. I don't think the Warder can.
Which is another gross part of their bond.
Yeah.
Wait,
The Warder has no
are you
control
sure?
over that.
Min doesn't.
Uh-huh.
Remember when Min gets bonded, she can't fuzz the bond. The channelers can, and she can't.
You have to be a channeler to fuzz the bond.
Yeah. Which I guess makes it's not such a flaw of the bond as much as a flaw of bringing non-channelers into a bond. But
So there's a power imbalance there. So but it makes me wonder, like, why haven't they tracked down Elyas? And if she hasn't tracked him down, then why hasn't she released him? It seems like one or the other, right? Like, I guess the only thing she wouldn't want him tracked down, because if he was killed, that would cause her grief.
well, she could let it go right before he died, though. If it was execution. Maybe there was something going on between them. Maybe they had a really close relationship and the wolf thing was like a really big wedge and like there's emotional baggage there. So that's their...
Does the wolf thing help him shield?
Mm.
Like you can learn how to shield your dreams if you're a dreamer. Can you also then sort of shield the bond or mask it somehow, blur it?
Maybe when he's like more in wolfy space, he's less human to her or something. I like the idea of a bunch of like, dramatic emotional baggage better, but I could see bond mechanics working also. But I don't know. Aes Sedai do weird shit. Maybe because she like knew he couldn't channel, so it's not like he needs to be tracked down, but also like maybe he'll go crazy, so I have to keep track of him just in case or something. I don't know.
Like, if I'm standing on this hill, he can mask the bond. Warders can learn to mask the bond. Otherwise, they would have hunted him down. Like Elyas says that any Aes Sedai who finds a warder that's run off is going to make his life miserable until they hand him over to his bonded Aes Sedai, and then she's gonna make him wish he was never born. So for sure, the Aes Sedai would want revenge on a warder.
Yeah.
And he says this with such conviction that the last time he could feel her emotions, that's what she felt. Like, obviously, she could have moved on from that by now, but...
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
And also, I was also thinking, like Kaldrig is saying in the chat, that it's like ignoring heat and cold. Like, yes, you can learn it. It's a mental trick. You can learn to do it even if you're not a channeler, but non-channelers have a harder time doing it. So, yeah. And also, Min had, 5 minutes from getting the bond to trying to
That's just true. She has no training in any tradition that would give her...
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
no, that's
imagine,
fair.
A wet washcloth,
handkerchief
around
with knots and...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair, because, we don't see anyone practicing it concertedly to learn it, despite not being a channeler, so that could totally be a learnable skill. The channelers all say it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
and
fair.
Also, to be fair, I think Min was interested. She's like, ooh, is this what he feels like? Ooh, is that what he's thinking when
she
he's
wouldn't
looking?
admit to her voyeurism, but, she's got a bit of voyeur
She's
going on. Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm nodding.
Min sees. The way Perrin knows, Min sees.
True. And also in relation to the water bond, there's something that nudged his memory, Perrin's memory, with this, the Aes Sedai knowing where the warder, their warder is. And what is this thing that is, tugging at his memory?
Alana and Rand at Dumas Wells. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
how
that
did
is.
Alana know, we have to go this way?
Right, and then when Rand, turned around and pointed at her without looking, and all of that, and he was just like, what? This reminds me of something. And yeah, that's what this callback is. So yeah, it's...
Yeah. It's just very fast, because then Elyas says something else, and then they move away from it. But
yeah, I completely missed this. I didn't see it at all in my highlights.
Yeah, Perrin's even raising the question, how could you possibly run into her? And it's yeah, she fuzzed the bond, but she never let it go. Why wouldn't she let it go? I'm going back to there's drama between them.
Well, yeah, he ran away.
And killed a bunch of warders doing it.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, but she's not chasing him down. She's just letting him live his life.
Because he fuzzed the bond on his end.
I don't think so.
That's okay.
I think it's a decision on her part. I think that she fuzzed the bond. Even if she can't feel him, it's because she fuzzed the bond. She could unfuzz it if she wanted to.
Okay.
But why doesn't she want to?
Yeah.
He never says, I fuzz the bond, or we fuzz the bond, or, I think it's entirely, why doesn't she track him down?
No, but he does say that, wouldn't you want to, you can mask the bond, and he says to Perrin, how would you feel if you were cuddle up with a girl and someone was looking in on you? As if I have been in this situation, I would not want someone else looking in on me.
That does imply that, yeah.
Well, yeah, but he doesn't have control over that, as Aes Sedai does. She's the one who can close the blind on the window. He's on the side without the blinds. For example, he says, warders don't run often, boy. Most Aes Sedai will free a man who really wants to go. Most will. And anyway, she can track you down however far you run if she decides to hunt. There's no, unless you fuzz the bond, or, it's just, she can track you down. If she wants to, she'll track you down. There's no qualifications about that whatsoever.
Okay, I hear your point.
But why hasn't she?
But why hasn't she? That's a good question, but...
Yeah, no, I'm staying on my hill. But I'm okay with you guys not joining me. That's fact.
I want more information. Oh, well. So is it time to get into marriage advice with Elyas?
Mm-hmm.
That's what my background's all about.
Specifically Saldean marriage advice. This isn't all purpose, but still.
Mm-hmm. It comes from the idea that to be strong, you need your partner to be strong. You both support each other by being better, and by being weak, you're dragging your partner down. The implementation of that is not necessarily something I would agree with. And there is that, and Elyas makes it very clear. Most women, you yell at them like this, they will shut down, because that is not good. Okay. It's a very specific cultural thing to this very specific culture. And There's some, like, I feel like some Italian, like, spiciness to this, like getting up in each other's faces and arguing, like, have you seen my cousin Vinny? Right? Like, there's a little bit of that sort of spiciness that I feel, again, is a very cultural thing. Is like, we don't have quiet discussions, we have loud arguments.
Right.
And, like, at least we're communicating? Even though the way of communication isn't great, at least there's some communication going wrong. It's better than, like, sitting on opposite sides of the couch and ignoring each other for 20 years. So, you know, I'm not trying to... this is where I really need to express the difference between what I believe Robert Jordan's views are, what the character's views are, and, like, what, you know... I don't believe Robert Jordan ever says this is the right way to treat women.
Right.
That's not what I'm trying to say. And you could say, well, but maybe in a specific case he's bringing it up and he's trying to make an exception. But, like, that's not what I think is going on here. I think he's just trying to write a culture that is outside of our norms.
Yeah. This is an example of how a relationship can be. Not necessarily saying this is how all relationships should be. That's also how I interpret this.
Yeah.
And some people love drama. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I know. We're a bunch of introverts who are like, this sounds like a fucking nightmare. But there are extroverts out there who, like, if there's not... The drama of the relationship is the relationship, right? Like, if things are going fine and normal, they need to stir shit up just to make sure that things are still active and going and interesting. I don't think it's a healthy way to have a relationship, but it happens.
I have a small tangent here that I don't know if you know the dating reality program Married at First Sight. But yes, Married at First Sight. Two strangers meet at the altar, then learns, like, it's a Danish concept that has then spread to the world. But there was this latest season, a couple had an agreement that for 15 minutes a day, they could say whatever. And they were not, like they were just very direct and honest, and it's like, no, you talk very loud, and you know, and everything that was wrong and that annoyed them, they would just say to each other, and I was like, holy shit, and they would be yelling at each other, and then 15 minutes later, it was like, okay, we shut it down, we aired our frustrations, and then they're the only couple who are still together, like, 6 months later after the show ended, yeah.
Whoa.
That's
wild.
That's not for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a communication is important.
Yeah.
You know, even sometimes when the vehicle of that communication is bad, right?
But also, I want to, like, I have two different points to make in regards to this particular advice from Elyas.
Go right ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
One is that I gotta go back to Perrin has ADHD, because in this particular case, he says that he's been taught to always mind his temper, always, don't react. And this is yet another example of, because when you were a kid and having ADHD and you reacted out. So this is another instance where I feel like, oh, yes, another proof or more evidence that Perrin has ADHD.
And also that he can't read the situation. He creates these hard rules, and because he doesn't understand when to slightly push those rules, he never ever steps over the line in the slightest.
But this is not on Perrin. I think this one is on Faile, because in, like, chapter 7, Perrin says that he has asked Faile several times what is wrong, and she says, oh, nothing's wrong, everything's fine. Yeah. And again, facts. These were the words that came out of Faile's mouth, so I'm going to take them at face value. And this, like, passive-aggressive bullshit that Faile has going on, and it's like thinking that Perrin can just read her mind or somehow get, like, magic knowledge about how Saldean relationships work is just, that's absurd. Like, Perrin finally took initiative for you two to have an actual conversation here, and you just said, everything's fine.
But fortunately, we get divine guidance from a red-tailed hawk. I mean, Wolfman.
True.
I like this paragraph. Could Faile really want him to shout? He'd always known he might hurt somebody if he was not careful, and he'd always tried to keep a tight rein on his temper. Words could hurt as much as fists. The wrong words you never meant, let loose in a temper. It had to be impossible. No woman would stand for that. from her husband or any man. He's not. That's sort of the right attitude, you know? Like, that's sort of what everybody here is saying. Everyone's like, no, that's bad. Don't do it. And yet, that's what Faile wants. Yeah. And we get from her POV, she's like, finally! Like, after this advice, she's like, God, he's actually like, I can yell at him, and he yells back, and I don't have to worry about my temper boiling over and hurting him. You know, it's like when Superman finally gets to have sex with Superwoman, and like Wonder Woman, that's right. And he can actually have sex and not worry about like crushing the person he's with, right? That's got to be a way better experience than Lois Lane, because you got to be constantly worried you're gonna like. To bring up a more salient example, The Boys, when Homelander and what's her name get it on. And they just start, like, beating the crap out of each other. Because they're both superheroes. And there's a certain amount of, like, well, we're both powerful enough. Let's just see where this goes, you know? And so there's a certain amount of, like, I want somebody who is willing to have that kind of emotional, powerful fight. And it's a very loose analogy, but that's where I'm going with it.
It's just the part where Perrin's like, hey, can we have some rules? And she's like, what game are we playing? And that's where it breaks down, right? If the two superheroes know they're both superheroes and they can go for it, great. But like Faile is pretending she's not even involved in the conversation, and that's the true problem. And then that's the crux of it. I find the whole concept of making this one particular personality trait an entire cultural trait kind of weird. But I've also never tried world building, so, you know, I'll stay in my lane on that one.
TC Traveler has a great line here. Faile doesn't want him to hit her with his words, but she wants him to stop holding back like he's always done. And I think that's a good way to put it, is like, she wants him to have opinions and emotions. And he's so suppressed and so repressed that he basically refuses to have his own emotions.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what she's looking for, is like, I want you to be an emotional human being.
But that's because he's been taught his whole life to, like, hold it back and hold it in.
Because he's too much.
Yeah.
He's been taught he's too much. And she's like, no, you're not. And that's an important thing for him to be able to get out. Ultimately, being able to feel like you aren't a force of nature that's going to set things on fire by being mad at them is a good thing.
Oh man, what you just said, being too much. I've lost friendships because I was too much.
Oh, yeah?
Before my diagnosis. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So oh man.
Yeah.
True.
This is what I'm saying.
So I think that's really, and I don't like that it gets shortcutted as yelling.
Right.
Yes.
And this is where I guess that's really what I want it to be, is let's reframe this not as Perrin yells at Faile like I've got going on behind me, but Faile wants Perrin to express his legitimate emotions, and it bugs the shit out of her that he won't do that.
Yeah. And Elyas is like, I'm not a marriage counselor, but I have a few observations. Please take my observations. And then that's like the first progress their relationship has had since they got married. And it's like, thank God for Elyas. I'm so unqualified, but here it's something.
You've been giving her soft words all the time. Mild as milk water and never laying your ears back. Never raising your voice. And Faile can tell he's pissed. Faile can tell he's angry. And he's like, no, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you there's nothing more infuriating than knowing your partner is upset and being like, what's wrong? Nothing. Fuck you. Something's wrong. I know it. Like, don't give me that, you know? And so I feel like that's, to flip it around, like, Faile's constantly being like, what's wrong? And Perrin's constantly like, nothing. Everything's fine. You know? And it's just driving her up a wall. And we're getting this to this breaking point where somebody needs to yell. So I want to be as generous to this relationship as I can be, because I love Perrin, I love Faile, and I think there are ways to interpret what's going on through our unreliable narrator eyes that makes it less abusive than what a lot of people claim it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is abusive. It's just not for the same reasons that a lot of people would pin it on. It's like, this is toxic behavior, but it's not choices. It's miscommunication.
Culture?
Yeah.
Cultural miscommunication. And So that's a very important conversation for understanding their whole arc, is the way Elyas influences it, which is why we're spending so much time on it here, is because this is the actual info dump where Elyas is like, I have life experience.
This is the turning point, right? Because after this, now, again, Sanderson reverts back to earlier because Sanderson can't, when he started his series, he started doing it with earlier characters. That's the whole thing. So, but like this point, he starts yelling at her. She's like, finally, things are getting better. Things are getting better. She gets kidnapped. Then things get worse for a while. There's the whole Berylane situation when she comes back where, you know, he's being accused of cheating. But at least between them, things are much better on that level. And then there's, like I said, once Sanderson gets a hold of him in book 10, he reverts back a little bit. But really, from this point on, they don't have relationship problems.
Yeah, the kidnapping thing sort of obfuscates the quality of their relationship at a certain point, but yeah.
But this fixes their relationship. Like, this advice...
Did you just find your clamp?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask what's going on.
I definitely stepped on something that was extremely sharp. Oh yeah, that's a push pin. That's a push pin that went into my foot. Oh yeah.
That's fun.
That went a good couple of millimeters into the bottom of my foot.
Ouch. Do you have your tetanus shot? Love, Mom.
Sure.
This is America. Do we look like we get medical care to you?
I was in the middle of a sentence when I stepped on attack. So what was I saying?
Elyas fixes their relationship.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He does. You know, and
he's a good mentor to Perrin. He's a good like father figure to Perrin. We were talking earlier about how RJ really likes father figures. Like Elyas swings through, drops excellent advice, and then moves on. Like that's kind of what he does. I mean, he sticks around actually through the last.
Yeah, I was gonna say Elyas is through the last battle.
Well, so there's the Eye of the World, and then he comes back around and sticks. First time he just makes him a wolf brother. It's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, in a lot of ways, Hopper has been Perrin's mentor.
Yeah.
This entire time and taken that spot that Elyas never did. And that's one thing that's interesting, that I'm surprised they don't talk about Hopper.
Yeah. Because they were like in the same pack when Perrin met them.
Mm-hmm. That's Hopper introduced Elyas to Perrin.
They were both in Dapple's pack.
And
they were both males in Dapple's pack, just together. Like
right. And then Hopper went on to mentor, I mean, after he died the first time, went on to mentor. You think that, like, he would still communicate with Elyas? And, I mean, Elyas does say he avoids the wolf dream, so maybe he's been avoiding Hopper, and, like, Hopper doesn't talk to him anymore, because Hopper's...
Yeah, Elyas has a warder's attitude towards Talaran Riyadh, which is, that's Aes Sedai stuff, stay away. But it is weird that they don't at least mention him. But I guess wolves just move on. Wolves are not as sentimental as humans, so...
One other piece of advice Elyas gives is watch Ghealdan. He could be trouble. What? I didn't really catch that.
Because all he knows is attack.
Okay.
It's just because Perrin's even like, wait, you know him? And he's just like, no, I just know of him and his reputation. He is Berylane is the
another
brains.
boy with a sword.
Yeah.
That needs guidance, and Berylane is excellent guidance, but without Berylane, he's just a boy with a sword. So
he's just another axe.
Yeah, so it's kind of just general, like, oh, by the way, like, never think that this guy is the smart one in that pairing. Like, that, no. He's a good attacker, but do not expect him to be good at anything else.
So what would have happened to Ghealdan if Berylane had been kidnapped?
It would have been a mess. That would have been a huge fracture in Perrin's army that he would have had to overcome, and he didn't have the wherewithal to overcome someone like Ghealdan deciding to split. You know, like Arganda stays because he needs those forces to get Alejandra back, right? I think Ghealdan might have been more just like, fuck it, I'm going in, and it would have been bad.
That would have been the end of those troops.
Yeah, very much so. But Alejandra's guard is just as worried about her, but is a little smarter and a much better strategist. And is like, the way to get my queen back is not to massacre my troops, it is to stick with Perrin. Yeah. I think it would have been a really big deal if Berylane had been kidnapped, but that would have been really sucky for Perrin's army and getting Faile back.
The next thing we have is the return of the party with Queen Alejandra in tow.
Which is being announced by a bluefinch trill. However, this is man-made, because this is a borderlander bird, and we are not in the borderlands. But finches symbolizes joy, happiness, and better times ahead. So I was like, okay, so is it because it's friendly people coming into camp, or like, is it just random because this is man-made, or is it because, oh, okay, Eliandra is about to come swear fealty to you, so we got that alliance going from now on.
We see Perrin use bird calls frequently
Yes.
that are out of place as signals. So that's something that, like, yeah, that's just a signal that somebody is coming, and a different bird call would mean friendly versus unfriendly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we see that when Masima comes, like, much later down the storyline. The kind of bird call, the direction, and the enemy.
That's going to be interesting to see what that bird symbolizes.
Yeah, but it's clever.
Anyway, things to look out for.
Right? Yeah. Beds, beards.
Berlin returns and she has a messenger.
Right?
Yes.
Rushes this messenger in, and Perrin's like, why would she send a messenger? Why couldn't she just give a verbal message? It's not a messenger, you ding-dong.
Also, I noted that he says that Eliandra, she looks down her nose. And I was like, is this like a requirement to be a ruler? Because that's all we hear about Elaine is looking down her nose. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah, it's the mark of royalty.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
They're just used to it. It's just a stance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not, when she came out here, initially plan on accompanying Perrin on his journey.
No.
No, this was just literally to sort of take his measure and see what kind of person he was, check him out,
And to swear fealty.
But
in
also
person.
and to swear
yeah.
fealty to him.
But she didn't plan on, like, joining his party. I mean, that's
No.
That's
ridiculous.
all Faile.
And it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would a queen abandon her place of power to go after an army randomly? Like, I guess because Masima is her biggest threat, right? Like, what is the problem of her rule? We saw her bending to Masima, giving him jewels. If she's behind an army that's about to take him down, that I could see would be... Then she can come back into the capital and be like, I just took down the prophet, and he was the biggest threat. Bow down to me, you know? So I guess on one level it does make sense that because she has so little power in her capital anyway, why not go tackle the biggest threat to her kingdom?
Well, and also, I mean, the only reason she goes is because the wife of her liege lord demands it. Well, her liege lord demands it. That's the real reason she
Yes.
goes.
And there's some Taviran twisting in there.
At first, yeah, that is like, Faile has to be like, did you just forget you put yourself beneath me? You gotta, come on, lady. Yeah, you swore an oath. But then later, when Faile tells her the actual plan, she's like, oh, wow, that's actually quite clever. Okay, sure, I can get behind that. And Eliandra, she hasn't been queen very long, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because Masima is like...
She's like the seventh
Gotten
to hold the
all of her-
throne in the year or
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
It's been bad.
We get that scene with Nynaeve and Uno where they go visit Masima, and she's like giving all her jewelries and stuff like that, and we get the backstory from Uno about what's going on with her and how, like, there's been 4 in less than a year, and she's the only one who's survived because she's bent to his rule rather than the other way around.
Yeah.
And so she gives us the recent news, right? You may not have heard, but 4 days ago, Alien fell to the Dragon Reborn, and 7 days ago, the Shan took Abu Dar, which for us, since we know, that anchors us very solidly in the timeline of the rest of the events in these books, because that reunites us with both Rand and his storyline and the Supergirls and their storyline, and the Baldwins.
Which is nice to have those timestamps.
Yeah. And we've been using those through the entire chapter.
Right as Eliandra talks about the Shanchan and everything, Perrin gets distracted and he starts thinking about Elyas's advice again and accidentally calls Eliandra by first name in no title. And when he realizes this, Perrin says to himself he had to concentrate here, not let his mind wander in 9 directions. And this, to me, indicates that it has happened to him before, and so I just gotta say, ADHD.
Yeah.
So whereas I'd say Taviran, right?
Yeah.
Because letting his mind wander and calling her by her first name, that's not the only time that works in his favor, right? The other time it works in his favor is when he's going up with the Shanchan, and he calls Suroth by her first name. And because he presents the letter.
When is
Oh,
this?
no, it's in So Harbor. He presents the letter from Suroth and
From
tells
Suroth.
the manager person with her name because he forgets. Yeah, I forgot about that.
He's trying to get the fork root tea.
Yeah. And he's got Tylee with him at that point, and she's looking at him like, you fucking what?
Yeah, she's like, that implies you are either one of her intimates or an ignorant foreigner. And she made the assumption that you are not an ignorant foreigner. You know, like, which is exactly what you are. But, like, that's the same thing. He used her first name in a situation where everyone sort of went, oh, wow, you must have a lot of power to take that audacity. And he's like, wait, what? Oh, yeah, names are hard.
Yeah. I do feel though that like brain skipping around thing when Perrin thinks about Faile a lot, oftentimes, and also I think all the boys really, but particularly Perrin because he thinks about Faile a lot. They having these like one conversation out externally while they're thinking about their girl problems in the back. That's like a thing that they do like a lot.
Well, they are 20, so
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
yeah.
And it's also one of Jordan's writing styles.
True.
He likes to have a conversation going on in the head while they're having another conversation out loud. And then he likes to hit you with very impactful things and then switch to the other conversation. And so you're like, wait. What
Yeah.
did I just read? Did he really just think that? Or did she really just say that? Or did that person really just walk in? And if you don't stop and process it, you can very quickly get caught up in the next chunk. And that can distract you. And I think that's one of the ways he hides his little clever little details is by having an internal and external conversation going on at the same time.
Yeah. But it is relatable. Like I often have three trains of thought weaving in and out of each other, and I wish my internal author were half as clever as Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
Editing's great. If you could edit your own thoughts, they'd be much more coherent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get a story about how she got out, just passing by as the maid. Oh, I like the little detail where Faile whispered under her breath the details that Perrin didn't know, and then he just repeats them out loud. And it's like, how did you know that? You were so well informed. I only recently found out about it. It's like, yeah, actually, we found out about it from you, and then it was
So clever.
passed to me, and I'm repeating,
Classic
I'm
misdirection.
repeating your own knowledge back to you. Yeah.
And also, Faile is like, yeah, well, you know, we also in Saldea uses merchants for information, which is the Aes Sedai way of speaking again, with misleading.
Because that's not where she got the information at all, but she's implying that it is.
Yeah. And then when he says, like, don't have any worry about getting back to Bethel, you'll be fine. And Faile just, like, barely glances at him because she's thinking, like, what the? I have plans there.
No.
It's so funny.
She's not going back. And then I think we do get this Taviran twisting.
Oh, for sure. And actually,
Where that forces her to swear, yeah.
yeah, but it says that Enora, Berlin, and Faile are all watching Perrin closely, and he's like, wait, do they think I'm gonna triple Ramon tongue again? And I'm like, no, they're waiting to see your Taviran at work. And at least Matt knew that's what happened in the last book with Elaine and Nynaeve, that they were like just sitting back, you know, waiting for the Taviran to work, and Perrin just doesn't understand it at all. And
Yeah. And then the next thing I have highlighted is that now Berlin is a woman who needed shouting at. And I'm like, Perrin, you need to interrogate that thought and follow it back where it's coming from and what that implies about your relationship with these women. And like, unpack that, Perrin. Sit with that thought. Please. For the love of the light.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So then Alejandro's really skipping around the not skipping around. She's evading what Perrin wants to say because she's decided she wants to swear to him, but she wants to get the measure of him first. So every time he asks the question directly, she's like, but we should be talking about something else first. And like, it goes on for like, 2 pages? We get lots of information, but it's like a very short conversation as far as like the actual importance.
She does have reports of Aiel sacking a village right here in Ghealdan.
that's what I also noted, yeah.
That has to be
Yep.
Gateway Shadow.
Fucking-lutely. That is where all your angst is going to come from for the next several books, Perrin, my man.
Yeah, and him, the only Aiel in Ghealdan are with me. You're wrong about that one, Perrin. There's the entire Shido Wise One camp, and all of their soldiers are here.
The Forsaken didn't make the Tower of Power in the sky, but they did make the random Aiel that make no sense.
Yeah.
So I just had to point that out. A little foreshadowing there about the Aiel he's going to have to deal with.
Forsaken fuckery.
Yep. The Shan may be descendants of Arthur Hawkwing's Arwing, but Hawkwing is 1,000 years dead. Rand dealt with him once already, and he will again. I feel like that's foreshadowing the end of the book.
I mean, he tries. a couple of times.
He pulls out Kalendor, and he attacks them. And he does deal with them, kind of. He also kind of destroys his own army a little bit. Kind of also goes over the edge. Yeah, also there's a whole, Suroth meeting with Tuon, kneeling to the throne. It takes a while. There's a lot.
And then he thinks about how wrong he is about the Aes Sedai. Not really foreshadowing the end of this book, but definitely reminding you that Egwene is out there doing what none of the Taviran boys think she could possibly do. Just bring those Aes Sedai together.
There can't be more than a handful Aes Sedai there.
With nowhere to go except to Rand,
Right,
rumors. Yeah.
It's about the equivalent of being there could be 2-3 men channeling at the Black Tower max? Yeah. What is even that? A small... Well, who would even want to channel anyone?
Yeah.
There might be 10 of the kin.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think 13 was the number or something. They were of course 13, yeah.
The next thing I've highlighted is that Perrin has a folding chair problem like Egwene.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
I didn't.
It's a cute little parallel between them, which Perrin and Egwene are who met Elyas the first time. So it's just this little, the wobbly chair under the uncertain young leader from Emond's Field. It's just, it's there. A little bit, tiny bit.
Also, just a great representation of once they actually get power, their chairs aren't wobbly anymore.
Faile sits in it later in the same chapter. Has it already stopped being wobbly by then?
Well, I think it's more that he's too heavy for the camp furniture. It's less wobbly than Egwene's chair, but I'm squinting and tilting my head and making it fit.
Just force that.
Yes, perfect.
We get a bunch of little bits from Magdan, who cannot serve tea to save her friggin' life because she's never done it before.
And for Kayla, I'm going to call out the line, Faile was death on servants using that kind of language. Remember how Kayla had not heard that phrase?
That too.
Here we go. Here it is. It's here again.
Yep.
I also love that Morghese curses as much as Elaine.
Exactly.
Like mother, like daughter.
I noticed it. Yeah, that's exactly what I have in my notes.
Yeah.
It happens again a little while later that she swears again, and he's like, oh. I'm like, yeah, I see where Elaine got it from now.
But she's definitely swearing to herself under her breath, and they're probably using them correctly, unlike Elaine.
Yes. She's older, I mean.
She knew Tom.
Right.
Yeah,
and Tom Fox, as we know. Which clearly includes swearing. I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, the word fox is a swear,
really?
so...
Is it? I use it all the time. I didn't know it was a swear word. Nobody swears fealty to blacksmiths, except for Aiel, probably.
Except for, Now you have, 3 queens in your camp at this
You're married
point?
to a to-be queen?
There
are changes, Perrin. Hearkening back to the chapter title, there are changes that are happening.
Well, yeah.
And it's really, he has to be a leader now. And that's, again, this is where I don't like his portrayal in Sanderson's books, where he reverts back to not being no, I'm not going to be a leader. I'm going to send all these people home, and I'm not going to lead any of them. And I'm just that's not the Perrin that went through Path of Daggers. I don't know where you're pulling this Perrin from, because we're beyond that already. So that's my biggest problem with Sanderson's Perrin, is I feel like he undoes some of the character development that Perrin has gone through.
Yeah.
Make that point 3 times, but it bugs the hell out of me sometimes.
It does really bother you.
He does the same thing with all three characters in Gathering Storm. All 3 main boys are from Lord of Chaos Shadow Rising era. And he reverts their personalities back and they have to move on. Anyway, it bugs me.
Yeah, it's a thing. This was everything Rand could want and more, but Perrin Aybara was just a blacksmith. He was. Could he still tell himself that if he did this thing? This is such an important moment for him, even though it's framed as being about Alejandra. It's framed as being about the dragon. This is a huge internal moment for Perrin.
It's about him assuming power in his own right and having people swear to him instead of him instead of him shepherding some of Rand's power. This is him taking power for himself.
This is him changing.
Yeah.
Yep.
which we'll talk about later at the end of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's why I keep bringing up this the reversion that happened in Gathering Storm, because it's like Sanderson didn't read this chapter, right? Like, he changed in this chapter. We're over the fighting with his wife thing. We're over the, like, whether or not he's going to be a leader or not thing. He has to change with the times. And, like, I can get you struggle a little bit with that change, but we're beyond deciding to make that change.
Yeah, we are. And then Alejandra confirms the intel about the prophet being in Abila, which is the beginning of Balwer having Perrin's trust, because the first piece of information was good.
And he's like, wait, how many Terrabonners? How did he say were there? Because now he's like, oh, wait, that information was right. I'm guessing everything else is too. Yeah. Now I should really take that into account.
And then Faile's like, shoo, I have conversations to have.
Actually, before that, when Perrin accepts Alejandro's oath, he's supposed to, like, say something real fancy back, and Faile obviously tells him under her breath. And then Perrin is like, hang on a minute. Because, I'm Taviran. Are you sure you don't want to, like, go back home, sleep on it, and come back, and, like... And then afterwards, like, he talks to Alejandra about it for a second, and she's like, yes, I'm good. I meant what I said. Now please accept. And then he repeats everything that Faile just said. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, that's so unrealistic.
Agree.
He is not gonna remember this at all. Like... What? No! Like, give me magic, give me marital, give me vampire-like creatures. Yes, sure, I can believe that. But this? No.
I had that same thought. He's,
like, not only is it, like, a hell of a long, like, stream of words, like, saying it in a specific order that needs to be said in a certain way, but he also, like, had a different conversation in between hearing it and then having to say it again. Like, no. Mm-mm.
Is it weird that I kind of assume, because I assume there's no way to do that she was also remouthing the words along with him the second time? That she's like, she said it once, and then he went to repeat it, and like, she's like, and like every time he got to the end of the sentence, she's like, and, like, she's like repeating it under her voice to help him out. Because, like, I don't see him memorizing that whole thing either. No.
Though Caldric is pointing out that he did remember the Tinker greeting and farewell words a year after hearing them one time, so... But I agree with you, too. It has never sat right with me that he just remembers this flowery, ornate paragraph.
But that's like...
It just...
Okay, I don't remember...
That's always in books when someone's like, hey, where am I going? And someone, like, rattles off an address and, like, cool, see you there.
Nobody.
Like,
no.
That's already gone. Mm-mm. That's out of my memory already. I tried to remember that. Like, I heard those numbers. I'm already like, what? What? Wait, what? Like, so... I don't know if people with different brains can remember that kind of stuff, or if it's just for the sake of, like, it's not worth having the person, like, write down the numbers on their hand or whatever, unless it's for a plot device, like, you write the girl's number on your hand and then you smudge it later.
Right, I'm the written word, man. I need things in writing. I just do.
So I've been working at this restaurant, and my chef she's amazing. She's just an amazing cook, but very well trained, but she's intuited everything at this point. She's been working as a chef her whole life. She's gone to culinary school. Like, the idea of measuring things or having a recipe is completely foreign to her, because she's like, oh, I threw some of this in and then a little bit of that. Oh, and I added a dash of that and a punch of this, and I threw it all together and cooked it until it was done. And I'm like, so you want me to reproduce that recipe, right? And so yeah, it's just, there's been a lot of, she's like, sure, it's 3 cups of this, 2 cups of that, a cup of that, and then braise for about 45 minutes. And I'll be like, stop, let me get a pen and paper, let me pull out my book, repeat that one step at a time. And like, it's just, I've had to just be like, it's not that I can't cook this, it's just that when you rattle off 17 steps in a row with 6 different ingredients, that is not going to stick in my head. Like, it's just not. Like, and that's, I don't know how people do it in these stories, because it's something that Perrin does here.
Well, literary devices plus different brains equals more efficient stories.
And TC Traveler is making a good point. There is an oral tradition here. Books are very rare, right? Like, they have a small collection of books. There's not a lot of paper to write on. Most people are telling oral stories. The idea of the gleeman and the oral tradition is something that goes on. So maybe there's a practiced skill of learning long segments of conversation.
Well, people certainly have been bemoaning the loss of people's long-term memory ever since, like, the dawn of printing. People have been saying, well, people won't remember stuff if they can just read it and write it in a book, all the way up through phones, making people unable to read books because they'd rather scroll TikTok. Like, that's a very old conversation, so I could see that being part of it, too. So, Perrin and Ghealdan exit the tent and end up getting pulled into a situation elsewhere in the camp, but the POV switches to Faile dealing with the actual political business of dealing with Alejandra, basically.
And that mess is they pulled in the prophets people who had been killing and slaughtering. So that's them entering camp. So that's when he says, first, let's see what all this is about, Perrin replied. That would give him time to think about what to say to Ghealdan and other things.
And go off and deal with
Like, should he yell at his wife?
Right.
Yeah, right. So yeah, we get Faile's POV here.
She works with Faile because she's got her little, like, hand sign thing going on. And she thinks about being guilty about being rude to Perrin because she's being very rude to Perrin. And her and Berylane sort of snipe at each other, which is catty, but also kind of fun. I always thought you were fit for hiring servants. Berylaine's not sure if she's being insulted or not. It's like, oh.
She's being insulted,
Yeah.
But yeah, Alejandra's basically like, this is sort of like after, have you ever taken like a test and everyone gets together afterwards? It's like, so what'd you get on B? I don't know, or what'd you get on number 2? I got B. Oh, I got C. What'd you think? This is sort of that
But
after.
Perrin
like,
is the test.
Oh man, what do you think about Perrin? Yeah, Perrin's the test, and it's like, oh, he's a formidable man. A frown here, hint of a threat there. Very formidable. He convinced me very quickly. And she's like, yeah, Taviran and honesty really fooled you. He spent some time in Cairn, so they play the game of houses there.
Yeah, it's so Aes Sedai.
Yeah, no. It's so Aes Sedai. She's playing Alejandra with what she's been given. She's like, they took the hand that Perrin gave her and just play the hell out of her.
Just before that, while Berylane and Faile are just talking about servants, Berylane says that, oh, Anura tells me that Mycling is a wilder. And Faile thinks, well, even if she is weak, that might prove useful. Foreshadowing much?
Yeah,
like that.
Like blowing a flag around a little
You
bit.
never know, and you're gonna just
like
need
that,
a flag. Yeah, it's great. I love that. It's not relevant for so long, but like,
but
Faile never would have known
right
if
there.
Anura hadn't said something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe in the camp because Galena actually points it out. So, but still, it gets Faile thinking sooner. And there's also this whole thing where she's thinking about like her and Berylane like fighting over Perrin, using Perrin as a game board and a prize, and how she's like, if not for Perrin, she probably would have really liked Berylane because she's competent and she respects her, even if she doesn't like her, and they would have been friends. And I'm just like, just bang both of them, god damn it.
And I love that neither one of them is willing to risk Perrin's power in their struggle.
Yeah. The fact that they know when the game has to be set aside is like, you would make such a good pair to support what Perrin's doing. Oh my god, he'd be unstoppable.
I'm so annoyed by this like relationship between Faile and Berylane, and Faile even admits that she's being very childish and feeling satisfied about how Berylane reacts when Faile asks Anura to ward them. And Faile says that like she's being forced to play this game, and I'm like, no, you're not. Girl. You choose this. You choose this.
You're a petty child.
No, yeah. Oh, I'm so annoyed. Jesus. And also Faile says that she couldn't treat Berylane the way that she deserved because Berylane is playing this game around Perrin. But I'm like, wait, what do you mean when you say that? Like,
she wants to shave her bald and kick her to the curb.
Yeah, like, is it, or like, because I think it's twofold. Like, one, she wants to treat her as a rival for Perrin's love, so shave her bald. And two, she's a formidable ruler and she deserves my respect, but she's not gonna get it. I'm gonna tell her that her perfect job is hiring servants. Like, but, yeah.
There's a little bit of hating what you see of yourself in somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Faile and Berylane definitely do that for each other.
I may have actually put in my notes that, does this annoy me, this passive aggressiveness between them? Does it annoy me so much because I personally have difficulty navigating these situations. So maybe I'm like doing exactly that toward these fictional characters.
What you're saying is you're Perrin in this situation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, calling me out like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
And that leads to Faile's basically saying, hey, I want more troops with me, and I want a queen with me. I'm bringing Alejandra. May I suggest perhaps you should accompany him when he goes south to meet the prophet? Of course, you will want your own soldiers with you, but I suggest no more than the first has with her. Shall we sit? It's this is what I suggest you do. Shall we sit until I convince you that this is what we're going to do?
Yeah, shall we have tea while we work out the details of you doing exactly what I tell you to?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Why in the light would I do that?
Yeah, Alejandra she thinks later about herself that she's a fairly simple woman just trying to keep up. It really shows here.
Mm-hmm.
What I do like about Alejandra is that she says that the prophet, with everything, like, I came here to swear fealty because I cannot protect my country and my people. So I need someone else, and I'm willing to, to bend the knee to you or whomever who can protect my people. So she's willing to sacrifice that, which I do appreciate.
Yeah, she's a good ruler.
Yeah.
And it does, she makes a good point. It leaves her open with King Elrond, right, from the south. Currently, he's in Altara.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what she doesn't know is he's being controlled by Grethel.
Awkward.
So,
another good reason to run away with the Taviran into the night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the other good reason to run away. If you are a monarch and you are left unprotected by a Taviran, chances are Forsaken's gonna snatch you up and take control of you, right? Like, the only monarchs who survive this are the ones like, Barillon attaches herself to Brand and then Perrin, and that keeps her from being snatched up by Forsaken. I can't think of any other. Again, we talked about this before, but no ruler other than Barillon survives from the beginning of the story to the end of the story in charge of their country. Not a single one.
Yeah, that's rough.
Maybe the ruler of Farmadding?
Oh, she gets kind of destabilized by Rand passing through, though.
That's true, yeah. I think Codswain really messes her
She's
power
like,
base
oops,
up.
I
Yeah,
accidentally killed your entire reign. Sorry.
Yeah.
Did I do that?
Andor gets a new queen. Most of the Borderlanders lose their kings and queens.
To the battle at
various
the end,
battles. Yeah, at the end. And their generals are all compelled.
But yeah, Alejandra's basically like, I can't just swear fealty to you and have nothing else change. I need something to change. And Faile's like, well, you could come with us. That would change things, wouldn't it? And it's not exactly how she drives the conversation, but Alejandra is a very pliant ruler of a very weak country. So Faile doesn't want to leave her on her own, which Alejandra's like, please don't leave me on my own. What Alejandra thought she was asking for was reinforcements. What she gets is a moving house arrest.
She's the reinforcements to Perrin's army is basically what happens. And I love the little strategy here where she's like, listen, as soon as I do this, the prophet's going to be pissed. And she's like, yeah, he'll hear about it, which is why you're going to write him and say, you've gathered your army to take care of us. You're fighting me. And that's what you're going to tell the prophet. And that's why he's going to not come after you.
Right, and then also send letters to all your nobles and tell them to stand down. She just basically disables, like, both sides of this minefield that they're trying to navigate by capturing Alejandra. Alejandra's pivotal to that entire just clearing the way.
And then they lets them pretty much march right into the capital of Ghealdan and talk to the prophet. Because that's basically what happens. Nothing really stops them. There's no battle or anything.
Everyone's just like, the queen said to not get into trouble. Okay.
Because up to this point, he's been trying to sneak in. And then it was, once Hari showed up, he's like, oh, making my announcement. I'm here. So now he needs all the support and the power he can get.
Particularly the support and power of the ostensible ruler of the country that he is invading, for lack of a better word. If the queen is on his side, he's not invading anymore. I love this. Faile tried not to bask too visibly. Now she had to send word to her people in Bethel. In a way, she regretted that. Explaining to Perrin would have been more than difficult, but even he could not have kept his temper if she had kidnapped the queen of Ghealdan.
Which just sort of tells us what her plan was in the first place. Like, she's like, has to tell the people, don't bother.
Stand
anymore.
down.
We got
the
her.
package has been secured.
Stand down. Yeah.
I do like that she tried not to bash too visibly or whatever it is she's saying. It is because that both Nora and Berylane are like, whoa, that's an amazingly good plan. And I do appreciate that this is Faile alone. Perrin doesn't know all the details. And neither Berylane nor Nora was involved in this. And they're both like, yes, this works. And I think that this is the first time that we really see Faile, like, in her own right, like, actually making a difference. And because she tried in Kyrian, right? Like, she tried. And that didn't really, it wasn't quite there. But this time, she's like, she has a plan. It's a great plan, and it works. She gets it.
Yeah, and she's ahead of Berylane on it, which last time in Kyrian, Berylane came out on top in that one.
Berylane kind of came out on top on this one, too. Berylaine's the one who snuck the queen out.
But Faile's plan is more advanced than what Berylane has going on. I mean, from where Faile's sitting, she's basking, you know?
Yeah.
Because she's still a child. She needs to grow up a bit.
Well, yeah, and she getting the queen to go with... I guess Berylaine's plan was to get the queen out of the city. It was Faile's plan to have her accompany them. So that's a real accomplishment. But again, it wasn't really subtle. Her great accomplishment was, you do what I say, and I say that you come with us. Right? It wasn't like she manipulated her into it or anything.
Everyone praised Matt when he did that with the sea folk.
Well, because they swore fealty to him, not to his wife.
Because he told them that's what they were going to do.
Fair.
Robert Jordan likes a protagonist that asserts their authority without any equivocation.
What do you mean, wise ones?
I just feel like in this situation that, yes, she starts out by saying, you know, I'm married to your liege lord, so come with me. But when she starts explaining, like, how it's gonna work out and how she's gonna, like, secure Eliandra's, like, queendom and ensure that she doesn't get into trouble with Mazima or the other lords and ladies, like... Queen Elyandra is like, oh yeah, this could work. Sure. So I do feel like it's not just bullying. There is a plan.
Yeah, for sure. It is a sound strategy. For sure.
Come with me, and you'll see a world. Never mind.
So POV switch back to Perrin.
POV switch back to Perrin.
He hears thunder again, not so distant, because the storm is
Yep.
There's a storm front just rolling over on its way.
Super fast. Nice.
Yeah, there's rain at the end of the chapter. This is that particular line of thunderclouds.
We've had snippets of thunder in the distance throughout these two chapters.
Yeah. It's moving like speed of a car, right? It's like really fast.
Yeah.
So we've been hearing it over the course of a single morning. It's just like... It's cool.
So the scouts bring back prisoners, essentially. Ghealdan, my scouts are supposed to bring back information, not rag pickers.
After he calls them all mangy hounds, which I love. Like,
yeah.
you mangy hounds.
All right. He's a very Uno-esque soldier in that sort of vein.
We needed more than one of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, I don't want prisoners. And they're like, but they're war criminals. So...
Right. We literally saw them bash a woman's head in as she was just trying to escape out of a burning building.
That they set on fire.
Yeah.
That they set on fire, so...
And we know how Perrin feels about that. And then Perrin's like, good call. Let's kill them.
For a second, I thought they might be White Cloaks, because the first prisoner says, people are often tempted to slide back into the shadow. They must be reminded of the cost. And to me, that's a very White Cloak thing to say. But then he goes on and is really obviously the prophet of the Lord Dragon, blessed be his name in the light, blah, 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 blah. So it's very clear that he is a dragon sworn.
Or prophet sworn, specifically.
Yeah. But it's just interesting how similar the philosophy of the White Cloaks and the people of the dragon are.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty messed up how close they get, how quickly they get.
Stray from the light, and he must be killed. And they have that sort of similar
and
attitude.
this, like, it doesn't matter if I die, my organization will avenge me, and you will burn in the pits of hell, and, like, all of that sort of, like, fanaticism. Yeah.
We are a legion, you can kill one of us, there'll be more of us on our way. That sort of, like, crazy...
Yeah, and like the soldiers behind Perrin are kind of like, I hope that doesn't happen too soon. We don't have enough, like, to deal with the size of army this guy has. Like, yeesh.
They knew very well that Masima had destroyed a larger army than theirs. Hang them, Perrin said. Again,
I love
he
that
heard
pairing.
that thunder.
Hang them.
Oh, yeah.
Having given the order, he made himself watch. It's very much like Rand with Mangan.
Oh, I was thinking it's a very Eddard Stark thing to do,
uh-huh.
vice versa. Like, I gave the order, so I have to follow through on it, or at least watch the hanging.
Yeah.
That's actually a lot of our characters have expressed that. I think I said that. I actually used the Eddard Stark comparison.
Yeah, I
wanna
think
say
with
to
Elaine.
in the
That
earlier
sounds right.
chapter. Yeah, like a couple chapters ago.
Oh,
so
yeah, I'm a little bit
yeah,
behind.
it's definitely. No, it's amazing how often that comes up. Of like, these are our characters when they decide that someone needs to be punished. They all feel the guilt. They all keep the weight on themselves. None of them pass it off to somebody else.
Yeah. It's almost like it's important for leaders to feel responsible for their actions. It's almost like that's what RJ's saying here.
Really? Because I thought it was important that leaders are able to give a command to the military, who then commands somebody to push a button on a drone that then bombs civilians.
I mean, you can do that too.
And that guilt doesn't come back on the leaders at all.
Yeah. You put enough buffers in there, pretty
Right.
soon it's just a video game with money. But
Yeah. So
These what do we call them? Masima's men? What, the Dragonsworn, right? They're called Dragonsworn.
I guess they are Dragonsworn. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So they feel like it's only the leader who keeps being like, oh yeah, hang us, there'll be more, like, we walk in the light, so whatever. But as soon as, like, the others realize, oh, it's time for me, I'm not getting out of this. Like, they mean business. They weren't, like, threatened by us, even though we were like, oh, we're Masima's men, and we have a huge army. And I feel like if they'd, like, had the opportunity and the courage, they would have probably, like, begged for mercy, almost. And I feel like, it just made me think, like, wait, is there sort of, like, a heaven in the Wheel of Time religion?
It's by my hope of salvation and rebirth. That's all we ever
okay,
got.
Yeah.
So do they realize at this point, except for the leader, who is, like, hardcore to the end, but do the others realize all the evil shit that they've done, and now there's judgment on the other side?
I mean, I would assume so. The prisoners began to weep as their lead roads were thrown over the tree limbs. A once fat man repented, and he would serve any master they named. A bald-headed fellow who looked as tough as Lamgwin thrashed and screamed until the rope caught off his howls. So, I mean, they're all just basically like, whoa, no, this is not what I thought. They were in it for the killing and the murder and the looting, and now all this, and they're being treated that way. I think only the leader is a zealot.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the only true believer. The rest were caught up in the heat of the moment and the promise of spoils. Looting and pillaging and war crimes, like what normal people are into. Doing war crimes in a mob without washing.
But this just, it really just, it says more about what the situation is, that they could be, like, caught up in this thing. And then on their deathbed, or, they realize, holy shit, what did I do? Like, what happened? Like, but I'm just, man, things must be, like, horrible. Like, the alternative must be horrible. Like, also with everybody who swears the Sanchan oaths and joins their army, even though, like, oh, well, yeah, but they, like, enslaved some of your women. Like, oh, yes, but if I spoke up, I would have been, like, burned on the spot. And
right.
Yeah, it's, oh, man.
You're being coerced into something like this.
Yeah. And I just feel like, well, yeah, probably these men that are getting hanged were in also terrible situations for them to join the Dragonsworn.
Right. Well, and I mean, initially, Dragonsworn just means people who believe that the dragon has been reborn and have broken all bonds. Like, that is the initial definition of Dragonsworn. Masima ends up being this gravity center that pulls a lot of them together, but the lawlessness and the groundedlessness and the war refugee status because of the first Seanchan invasion, like, all of those are pressures that exist first. And then this bully boy.
Because initially the Dragonsworn are, like, in groups on Almouth Plain. And remember, Rand's like, if I go down to any one of them, they'll be snatched up and killed immediately. And, like, that's what he and Moraine fight about for, like, 6 months.
And then the White Cloaks are, like, inciting some of that, like, at the same time, hoping to draw Rand out.
And then all those refugees end up
they don't get a leader, so they end up gravitating towards Masima.
Again, with the father figure and the guidance and the mentor,
And the religious zealotry. I have divine guidance. The dragon talks to me. Like, someone's going to pick him up. And of course it's going to be a zealot.
So after Perrin hangs them, Aram is very much goes, if these people were serving the shadow, forgive me, Perrin, but will Lord Dragon approve of this? What do you mean, if these people were serving? Because he's hearing their rhetoric, right? And he's sort of buying into this, like, the prophet of the Lord Dragon, all this kind of stuff. Like, people are tempted to slide back into the shadow and need reminding. Like, Aram's kind of buying into all that crap.
Because he is open and vulnerable to that kind of propaganda, even when it's delivered in the worst possible way. He's that desperate for leadership that he falls for it.
So what we're saying is Masima is Facebook?
Yep.
But also, I just, like, when Perrin is talking to the wise ones, he's like, no, we're not gonna kill Masima, even if he is a rabid dog. And now here is a group of rabid dogs, and he's just like, hang them. That wasn't that too long ago that he's like, no, we cannot kill Masima, no. Like,
well, not Masima, but if he tells, he says to Hari, if we find anybody collecting trophies, if we find anybody committing crimes, I will hang them. So he is enforcing that promise. Why he's giving Masima the exception when he's the one who's commanding all this, I don't know. Like that, I think he's sort of giving him the benefit of the doubt and being like, he's just not in control of his troops. He doesn't know what's going on. He can't be actually condoning all of this, right?
Well, and the politics of it.
Right.
Rand sent him to get Masima. Like, that's the mission. It's not really politics, but you know what I mean? Like, that's the strategy.
Yeah.
Is that Rand wants Masima. So
there's also an interaction between Perrin and Masima in the beginning of Book 3, The Dragon Reborn, right after Rand ups and leaves them. And Masima's like, why would the Dragon Reborn leave us? And I remember when you guys covered it, that I was like, trying to figure out if there's anything in that interaction between Perrin and Masima that sort of helps push Masima on his dark path. And so I don't recall it now, but I'm just wondering if maybe, does Perrin feel any kind of guilt into... Because he used to be, like, friendly with Masima. Could he have intervened? Could he have helped him not go down this path?
Not so much guilt, so much as I think it might be hard to believe someone is this terrible. And this much of a rabid dog is like, he's probably giving him the benefit of the doubt. He's like, I know Masima. He can't be that bad. Yeah. He can't, he was a reasonable soldier. Like, I don't understand why everyone's saying he's insane.
He was just racist against Aiel. It's normal.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Well, that man never did anything towards me.
Right, yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, we get this storm that rolls through in almost like tornado-like fashion.
Like a derecho or something. It's intense.
Yeah. Lightning forked in a cloudless sky. Thunder tolled repeatedly, and lightning writhed in silver blue snakes, and beneath a burning sun, rain fell. Fat, scattered drops that splashed fountains of dust where they hit bare ground. Perrin wiped one from his cheek and peered at the damp fingers in amazement. In moments the storm was gone, thunder and lightning rolling on eastward. No clouds. There's not a single cloud. Thunder, lightning, and rain in a cloudless sky.
Rain from a cloudless sky.
Weird.
Is unnerving.
Oh, very unnerving.
Yeah. But it's because magic. Weather adjustment. I mean,
no.
I have a really cool book called Freaks of the Storm that is about weird atmospheric phenomena that have happened and the explanations for why they've happened. Blood rains, frog rains, hailstones in the shape of crosses the size of footballs. I mean, all kinds of weird shit. And rain without clouds can happen when you have a lot of lateral, like, wind motion, right? You can have the rain fall from clouds in one place and then get pushed very far away from the clouds and then finish falling to the ground. That can happen, but in this case it's definitely magic.
I've seen that in Portland a lot. We get rainbows when that happens.
Yeah, totally rainbows in a clear sky because the rain is not under a cloud, but I mean it does fall from a cloud.
This should cause a rainbow
only if the sun is behind them. I mean, they have to have the right geometry.
Well, if they're in the middle of the rain, all you have to do is turn around, turn your back to the sun.
That's true. Maybe there's just not enough of it.
Is the landscape flat?
I think so. I think it's flattish.
We know there are hills
Yeah, I would think rolling hills type landscape would be my assumption.
Yeah. But it's also really, really dry.
Yes, then there should be a rainbow.
So, like, the air is sucking that water up, like, as soon as it, goes.
The only thing is maybe if it's such a narrow band, maybe there's some weird effect with the sun and stuff like that. Or maybe...
And it's falling really fast, too. We feel like we've got, like, a downdraft. It's not, like, a foggy hang.
Matter.
Well, it depends. If there's only a very small amount of rain, right?
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
If it's like a sliver of rain, like a rain blade.
Yeah, totally. Just like this one like slice of rain, and then that's it. That's all you get.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it should have been a rainbow, but we just didn't get that. But we could have had one.
This can't be the Dark One's work, Aram said, and flinched. No one had ever seen a natural storm like that. It means the weather is changing, doesn't it, Lord Perrin? The weather is going to be right again? Perrin opened his mouth to tell the man not to call him that, but he closed it again with a sigh. I don't know, he said. What was it Ghaul had said? Everything changes, Aram. He just never thought that he would have to change, too. And that's that. Perrin has to change.
Perrin has to change.
But, like, I don't get it. Like, you are... Perrin, come on. You are preparing for the last battle. Capital L, capital B. And you just thought you were perfect to begin with? Like, no, you have
and you're a
to,
teenager.
like, evolve. And yeah, like, no, you're not done.
Not perfect so much as he thought he was evolving into a blacksmith, and now he has to change into evolve into something else.
Okay, fair. Okay, yeah.
His only goal in life was to be the blacksmith. And there's a difference from maturing and changing, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fair.
And yes, maturity is a kind of change, but like, yeah, he has to become a leader and a king, not a maker of objects.
Yeah.
But he does think of everything as blacksmith business, though. Alright. Well, I think that's the end of the chapter, right?
Well, thank you so much for joining us, AmyLee. This is really
Thank you so
fun.
much. And thanks to all the live people who stayed with us for all this time.
Thank you for having me.
Your insights were great. You had a lot to say. Really good
Yes.
stuff to say.
Thanks for being patient while we got the scheduling sorted out and all of that. This was really worth it. I'm glad we got 2 chapters in with you, even if we are all definitely completely loopy at this point.
Yeah.
Thanks for hanging out for nearly 5 hours for this whole thing from start to finish. That was...
Staying up late. We should probably let you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?